Hi class, sorry about not having the Zoom meeting yesterday. I had mentioned this, but my wife, Anna Patero, she also teaches at Solano Community College. She's a communication studies instructor as well, but she was also running for the Fairfield-Suisun Unified District School Board to be a member on the governing board. And Tuesday, she won the election, so that was kind of a late night. Yesterday was kind of hectic, so today getting everything back on track. And three things I want to cover in today's meeting. One, I want to talk a little bit about some delivery techniques that you can use to both open and end your speech. I also want to spend some time talking about what makes a really good topic for a persuasive speech. I think that's one of the more challenging aspects of this class. And as some of you are already finding out, it's way easier coming up with topics for an informative speech than it is for persuasive speech. So a couple more guidelines there. I want to give you all the tools you can possibly have to give you the opportunity to come up with the very best persuasive topic that works for you. And the persuasive speech is our last big assignment for the semester. We'll have a little speech that we'll do at the end of the semester, the farewell speech. But really, this next assignment, the persuasive speech, this is your last big assignment of the semester. So I want to make sure that you all have everything you need to be as successful as you possibly can on the speech. And then finally, I'm going to spend some time talking about just how to tell the difference between a persuasive topic as to whether it would work better as a behavioral or problem-solving persuasive speech, or if it would work better as an attitudinal persuasive speech. We'll talk about topics and how to make that determination if that topic would work better as a behavioral persuasive speech or if it would work better as an attitudinal persuasive speech. But first, some delivery techniques. So I want you, when you begin your persuasive speech, and again, this is the last big speech that you're going to do, I want you to make sure that you get off to the best possible start. And what's happening with some of you, you're just rushing into the opening. And I can tell because it's like, as soon as you hit that record, you're talking, but by the time the recording device kicks in with a lot of your speeches that you're submitting, I'm missing the first couple words. And generally, you never want to rush into a speech. Like if we were doing this in the classroom, what I would teach you is when your name's called on to speak, you walk up to the front of the class, but before you open your mouth and begin speaking, you want to establish your presence as a speaker. So you would walk up to the front of the class, you want to make sure that you set a nice firm stance, weight evenly balanced on each leg, and then I'm going to get momentary eye contact with two people in the audience even before I begin my presentation. So I walk up to the front of the class, I set my stance, bam, bam, and then as I look at that third person, now I'm starting into the speech. Now, I don't need you speaking to imaginary friends since you'll be doing your speeches at home and you really don't have an audience, but we want to create the illusion of you speaking to an audience. So that means you've got to look right into that camera lens as you open your speech, but don't rush into it. So now hit record, get set up, ready to go, and just in your head kind of go 1001, 1002, 1003, and then on that 3, look right into the camera lens, and then you deliver your speech with that opening line from your attention getter. And I don't want to hear anything before then. So I don't need you to give like a little, hey everybody, my name's Joe. I'm going to be doing my persuasive speech right now. Okay, ready? Let's get started. No, right? That's just a distraction. So when I pull up your video, when I hit play, I'm going to see you taking a second to establish your eye contact, looking right into the camera lens, and then you're opening up with that first line. Make sure you really project your voice. You want to make sure that you get off to a nice dynamic start, and especially with that persuasive speech, because it's just harder to persuade people than it is to inform people. So you want to make sure that right out of the gate, you're getting a strong start, making a strong impression. So when you begin your speeches, don't rush the opening. Take a second to establish your presence as a speaker, to get eye contact with the audience, and then to go into your presentation. And then when you get to the end of the speech, again, you don't want to rush the ending. For a lot of you, when you got to the end of your informative presentation, it was just like the speech stopped, like the tape ran out. But you want to end your speech, you want to deliver that last line, so it always does two things. You want to make sure that you have an impact on the audience, so you need to slow down a little bit with that last line. But even more importantly, you want to make sure that your speech has a strong sense of finality. Now, again, this is where it's a little bit different because we're actually applying all of this and doing our speeches online. We don't have an actual audience. But if we did, you want the audience to know when it's okay to clap. They need to know the ending of the speech. And so if you just kind of end your speech matter-of-factly, and it seems like there could be a line to come, and then there isn't, it makes it awkward for the audience. It's like, what, do we clap now? Is the speech over? So I also want you to end your speech with a strong sense of finality. And to do that, you just need to slow that last line down, use a few more pauses within that phrase that you're ending the speech with, and then just kind of drop your vocal tone on the last couple syllables. So instead of ending with, well, we are supposed to be free, but everywhere I look, I see people in chains, right? Well, it sounds like there should be another line to the end of that. But if I just change things up, so I'm actually ending with the quotation, and while we are all supposed to be free, everywhere I look, I see the world in chains. So I just kind of lowered my vocal tone on that last syllable. I slowed everything down, put in a couple pauses. That indicates to the audience a sense of finality along with delivering the last line. And then it's very clear to the audience that you're done with the speech. So in terms of your delivery for your persuasive speech, I want you to get off to a polished start with your attention getter. No chit chat before then. Establish your eye contact, opening first line. And then when you get to the end of the speech, let's kind of slow things down as we work towards that last line. And especially in persuasion, right? We're really trying to make an impact. So we really want to slow down as we deliver that last line. Okay? So I want to see those two delivery techniques in the persuasive speech. All right. Next thing I want to talk about, how to come up with a good persuasive topic. And again, it's hard to come up with persuasive topics. Back when I was coaching the speech and debate team here at Solano, and one thing we have to do as coaches is we do a lot of the work in terms of coming up with the topics that our students will use, because a rule that we follow in competition, you don't want to do a speech on a topic that topic has already been done. So as coaches, we're kind of familiar with what speeches happened last year, the year before. So part of the challenge in coming up with a good persuasive speech is it's got to be a unique, different topic that the audience hasn't heard before. So it's challenging. So when it comes to finding a good persuasive topic, I always tell students, start with your own frame of reference in terms of what are problems that affect me that I would like to deal with, right? So I think anything dealing with the cost of college could be a great persuasive topic. And you also want to consider how the topic will resonate with your audience. Now, again, that's a little tricky because we're doing the class online. But I want you to assume, and we're posting our speeches on the discussion page, so everyone in the class gets a chance to see your speeches. But what we want to do here is we want to make sure that we have a topic that not only resonates with you, but it's something that your audience would be interested in as well. So simply put, whatever problem I focus on, that should be something that affects me, but also it should be something that either directly or at least indirectly through family and friends affects the audience that I'm speaking to. If I come up with a topic for a persuasive speech, but it doesn't relate to the audience that I'm speaking to, probably little persuasion will take place. So there's a lot that goes into coming up with a good topic for a persuasive speech, but always start with your own frame of reference. Like, what are problems that affect you that you would like to see solved? And another aspect of a good persuasive topic is you want a topic that affords lots of practical, applicable solutions. Because if the audience is this class, so that's who you're directing your speech to, you want to make sure that you can also give your audience things, steps they can take to solve the particular problem. And that really determines the effectiveness of a persuasive speech. As a result of you speaking, were people motivated to take action, to go out and do something to solve a particular problem? And I've used this example in the past in some of the Zoom meetings, but I remember listening to a student for the first time, and it's a pretty popular topic now, but 15 years ago, identity theft was kind of a new persuasive appeal. And when I first heard that speech, I remember the speaker talking about one of the causes to the problem is we carry too much of our personal identity on our person. I think I've shared that story with you during the speech. I looked at my wallet, social security card. In the solution step, the speaker suggested that you take those personal items, put it in a safe place in your home. So when I got home, I took out my social security card, put it in a file folder, put it in a file cabinet. My my behavior was affected as a result of the speaker speaking, right? Another topic that a lot of you have had in brainstorming for persuasive topics dealing with climate change, right? Those are good topics for a persuasive speech because with most of those, you can give us specific things that we can actually do to have an impact on saving our globe, on saving the earth, things that we can do to be proactive when it comes to climate change. So that would make for a good persuasive topic. So good persuasive topics are topics that resonate with you, but they also have to resonate to the audience. Whatever the problem is, it has to be something that affects the audience you're speaking to directly or at least indirectly. And then most important of all, you want to be able to give us things that we can actually do, steps that we can take to solve a problem, right? If I have a persuasive topic and all that can really happen is that they, like state legislators or somebody else, has to take action to solve the problem, then I really don't like those as behavioral persuasive speeches because it leaves little for the audience to do. So good topics for persuasion are topics where there's lots of things that you can persuade the audience to do. And if you think of it from a realistic standpoint, like you can really take a proactive stance and do something about climate change as a result of taking this class. Like you focus on something that deals with climate change, you give us all things that we can actually do, and you convince us to actually do those things. Now you're actually, as a result of you speaking, are motivating people to take positive change to make the world a better place, right? How cool is that? So that's what we're learning to do with the persuasive speech. But it all begins with having a really good topic that works for you, that works for the audience. The solutions are applicable. The audience can actually take action to solve the problem. All right. Last thing I want to talk about would be how to tell the difference between a behavioral persuasive topic and an attitudinal persuasive topic. So with the behavioral persuasive topic, and the reason why we call it a behavioral persuasive topic is the goal is to affect the behavior of your audience. So behavioral persuasive speeches focus on problem solving topics. All right. So in kind of the barometer to use for this is when you think of your problem, right? When most people agree that it's a problem to be solved. So let's say that I wanted to do a behavioral persuasive speech on the problem of depression. And so in that speech, I'm going to talk about the symptoms and all of the negative things that happen physically and mentally if you're depressed. I'm going to talk also about the causes of depression, but most importantly, what I hope to do with the speech is in the solutions, give you actions, steps that you can take to actually fight against depression. Either if it's with you trying to solve depression in your life or if it's to help a family member or friend. And the reason why that wouldn't be an attitudinal persuasive speech is because attitudinal persuasive speeches don't necessarily focus on a problem to be solved. They focus on an issue to be debated. So the only way I could really do depression as an attitudinal persuasive speech if there was controversy about the worth of depression. Like if there were people that said, no, depression is good, right? I got to get me some of that depression, right? Then the focus would be depression good or bad. But that's not the case, right? Most people that you talk to when you bring up depression, oh yeah, my aunt suffers from that. That really sucks. So if most people agree that the topic of the speech is a problem to be solved, you're in the behavioral category. But if you have a topic that focuses more on just changing the mindset or the attitude of your audience, in fact, a classic example of an attitudinal persuasive speech would be on the controversy surrounding mask wearing. So as a persuasive speech, it could be that I am here to convince all of you of the importance of wearing a mask, right? But because the actual solution isn't that detailed, okay, put your mask on, good, now you're solving the problem. No, it's the controversy because some people think mask wearing is good, but then there are other folks who don't want to wear masks and don't want to be told to wear a mask. So that would be an issue of controversy. Therefore, that works best as an attitudinal persuasive speech. And then the reason why it's important to tell the difference between the two, I'm going to use a different outline format for the behavioral persuasive speech. I'm going to use the outline format where the main points in the body of the speech are already established. My first main point will focus on the effects of the problem, the physical manifestations that tell me that something is wrong. Second, I will explain and break down the causes of the problem, the reason or the reasons why the problem exists. And then finally, most importantly, I'll give you solutions you can apply to solve the problem. If you do an attitudinal persuasive speech, you won't use the behavior outline format. You'll use the same outline format that you learned for the informative speech. But the only thing that changes, obviously, would be your three main points. So in an attitudinal persuasive speech, each of your three main points would be an independent reason or an independent argument that supports your take on the issue. So if I'm doing an attitudinal persuasive speech on why I believe everybody should wear masks, in the body of the speech, my three main points will each be a specific argument or well-developed reason as to why mask wearing is good, all right? So it could be my first main point focuses on wearing a mask cuts down on the transmission of COVID-19. Then for my second main point, it could be that simply by wearing masks, that's the way to get our economy started again. And then a third main point could be if we're all wearing masks, here's the benefits it will have to the economy. And it could be that mask wearing is what gets us all back into the classroom. So you have a lot of freedom there. So if I'm doing the attitudinal persuasive speech, I want to come up for my main points, three arguments or three well-developed reasons that support my take on the issue. And if you really want to be strategic, when I'm doing an attitudinal persuasive speech, I always like having one of my three arguments as what I call a preemptive argument. I'm going to try to figure while I'm writing the speech what I think the biggest argument against what it is that I'm advocating is, and then I'll create a main point to answer back on that. For example, let's say that I'm giving an attitudinal persuasive speech and I'm advocating the legalization of all drugs, right? I think they all should be legal. Nothing should be illegal, right? There's definitely an issue of controversy. And certainly you would have people on the other side who say, whoa, easy. No, if you legalize all drugs, there'll be all kinds of problems. It'll increase the use of drugs in our society. So I know that I can expect that as a counter argument from whoever is listening. And really what goes on when you're giving a persuasive speech is you're presenting your arguments. The audience, they're arguing back, right? So what usually happens in an attitudinal persuasive speech is I'm presenting an argument. That audience member, that little inner voice, is, no, well, if you do that, that's going to increase drug use. More and more people are going to die because of drug abuse. So what I may do with that speech, I'll have a third main point, and the main point will be legalizing all drugs will actually lead to a net decrease in drug abuse. So I'm actually trying to answer back the argument that I think most people in the audience will have. That's called a preemptive strike or a preemptive argument. Always a good strategy if you're doing an attitudinal persuasive speech. So, simply put, a behavioral persuasive speech is a speech that focuses on a problem to be solved, and most people will agree that it is a problem. Yeah, that's really bad, right? Getting your identity theft or getting your identity stolen really sucks, right? It's not going to, no, we need more identity theft, right? So when it's a problem to be solved, works as a behavioral persuasive speech. If it's an issue of controversy, right? There's two sides to the issue. You're taking a stand on one side of the issue, and then in the body of the speech, you're developing three main arguments, i.e. three main points to try to convince the audience and support your take on the particular issue. All right? So hopefully that clears it up. Oh, also, and last thing with the attitudinal persuasive speech, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a political issue, right? One of the best attitudinal persuasive speeches that I've heard over the years, and this is probably 10 years ago, really good attitudinal persuasive speech on why LeBron James should be considered the greatest NBA player of all time, even better than Michael Jordan, right? So just took an issue of controversy, right? You could do it on entertainment, music, right? I think J. Cole is a more socially significant rapper than Kendrick Lamar, right? Issue of controversy. You could do an attitudinal persuasive speech why the original movie is always better than the remake. So doesn't necessarily have to be a serious political issue. This is your speech. As long as it's an issue of controversy, and this is a research assignment. So just like with the informative speech, you'll be required to have a minimum of 4 sources of evidence that you cite during the presentation of the speech. But as long as you can find research on the issue and there's 2 sides, it can work as an attitudinal persuasive speech. All right. I've gone over time today. I hope that gives you enough to go on. And again, if you have any problems with any of the topics, just shoot me an email. I'm here to help you. And don't get upset with me if I reject your topics when you do your topic proposals, right? I'm doing that for you, right? I'm just trying to ensure, I've been doing this a long time, folks. I've been doing this for over 30 years. So I'm just trying to ensure that you have a topic that you can be totally successful with. That's all I'm trying to do there. Not trying to ruin your speech. Not trying to prevent you from speaking on something that you want to. I just want to make sure that you have the best possible topic for the particular assignment so that we can maximize your full potential as a speaker. We out.